Welcome to the deep dive. You send us your sources. We extract the knowledge you need. Quick, hopefully entertaining.
That's the plan.
Today, we're diving into The Secret of Divine Civilization. It's by Abdu'l Bahá, written, get this, way back in 1875.
Yeah, quite a while ago.
And it's this really fascinating look at, well, how societies progress, human potential. It's got some surprisingly relevant ideas, actually.
Definitely. It offers a unique perspective on how nations can or maybe should advance.
So think of this as your shortcut. We'll be digging into historical angles, the importance of education, morality, what progress even means according to this text.
And there's some interesting historical connections and maybe some challenging questions in there for you about advancement itself.
Right. Okay, let's get into it. What's the first big takeaway?
Well, right off the bat, the thing that really jumps out is this absolute focus on the power of the human mind.
Okay.
Abdu'l Bahá basically argues that our greatest gifts, our core strengths, are intellect and wisdom. Everything humanity's achieved, knowledge, tech, art, you name it.
It all comes from the mind.
Exactly. He calls them emanations of the human mind. Plain and simple.
So for you, the listener, the key insight here isn't just about like resources or luck. It's about consciously growing our collective brain power, our wisdom.
Right. It puts a huge emphasis on learning, on critical thinking. Those are the real engines driving society forward.
And it's not just about being individually smart, is it? He connects a society's whole commitment to knowledge with its standing in the world.
Precisely. There's that great line, whatever people has ventured deeper into this shoreless sea has come to excel the rest.
Shoreless sea, I like that. Knowledge is this huge unexplored ocean.
Yeah, and venturing into it brings excellence. He also links this quest for knowledge directly to national pride, but also to individual worth.
How so?
Well, he says, the happiness and pride of a nation consist in this, that it should shine out like the sun in the high heaven of knowledge.
So knowledge makes a nation shine.
And for individuals, the honor and distinction of the individual consists in this, that he, among all the world's multitudes, should become a source of social good.
Ah, okay. So it's not just knowing things. It's using that knowledge to benefit everyone.
That's the idea, purposeful knowledge.
But this amazing potential we have, it's not guaranteed, right? The text seems to really contrast the heights we can reach with the depths we can fall into.
Oh, absolutely. It's a very clear warning about the dangers of passion and vain desire, and also ignorance and abomination. Pretty strong words.
Yeah, it feels like a stark choice.
It is. He asked this really pointed question, something like, how long shall we drift on the wings of passion and vain desire? How long shall we spend our days like barbarians in the depths of ignorance and abomination?
That really puts the responsibility on us, doesn't it, to use our minds, get beyond just basic impulses.
Exactly. The text argues the whole point of having these faculties, these abilities, is to build civilization, improve life, and keep pushing towards that impregnable stronghold of knowledge.
Building on that, here's where it gets really interesting for you, the listener. This clear dividing line he draws about human potential.
Yeah, that quote is powerful. How excellent, how honorable is man if he arises to fulfill his responsibilities. How wretched and contemptible if he shuts his eyes to the welfare of society and wastes his precious life in pursuing his own selfish interests.
That hits hard, still feels incredibly relevant today, that call to look beyond ourselves.
And this connects directly to the idea that real happiness isn't just personal satisfaction. It's deeply tied to the progress of civilization, to establishing justice.
Right, there's that quote about supreme happiness is man's, if he urges on the steed of high endeavor in the arena of civilization and justice.
So personal fulfillment comes from contributing to the greater good, to building a just society.
Which is then put right next to the opposite, the uttermost wretchedness of just living inertly, focused on base appetites. He's really blunt about it.
He is. He says people living like that become lower than the brute beasts. It's a strong condemnation of pure self-interest.
So the message is pretty urgent then.
Very much so. It calls on us to arise and lay hold of all those instrumentalities that promote the peace and well-being and happiness, the knowledge, culture, and industry, the dignity, value, and station of the entire human race.
Wow, that's a huge, ambitious vision, the entire human race.
It is. And it all circles back to unlocking our human potentialities through what he calls pure intention and unselfish effort.
And he looks back at Persia's history here, doesn't he? As an example.
Yes, he refers to Persia's past glory, calling it a rose garden of knowledge. It's like saying, look, this kind of flourishing is possible. It's happened before.
Which leads us neatly into the lessons from history he draws out. He
Yeah.
talks about Persia, modern-day Iran, when it was like a global powerhouse.
Exactly. A heart of the world, a bright torch, admired everywhere for its power, its learning, its political system, almost mythical sounding.
Like a golden age, yeah. But then there's a sharp turn. He contrasts that past with the miserable condition of Persia in 1875.
And he doesn't mince words about why. He blames idleness and lethargy, torpor, an undisciplined way of life, lack of ambition.
Ouch. There's that quote that really drives it home. This fairest of lands was once a lamp. Today, because of the idleness and lethargy of her people, her bright fortune has been totally eclipsed. Her light has turned to darkness.
It's a powerful lament, isn't it? And a crucial lesson for you. Even the greatest civilizations can fall if they lose their drive.
He does mention the Shah at the time was trying to make reforms, right? But people weren't all on board.
Correct. He acknowledges the efforts, but also highlights the pushback. People worried about newfangled methods and foreignisms.
Sounds familiar, the classic tension between progress and tradition.
Absolutely. They worried reforms conflicted with time-honored customs, even calling them practices of heathen peoples. And there was that saying.
He who imitates a people is one of them, showing that resistance to borrowing ideas.
Right. But then others argued for gradual change, or that Persians should create their own reforms. It was a complex debate.
So not a simple yes or no to change.
No. And the author criticizes the whole situation, the conflict of opinions, this useless antagonism, this ignorance, this refusal to think, saying it just hinders progress.
So his point is, you have to learn from others.
Essentially, yes. Learn from the experiences of other nations where the basic requirements for progress have been time and again put to the test, and the benefits are clear.
Which leads to those rhetorical questions he asks.
Yeah, things like, would more education actually be bad? Would better science, more industry, fair laws be harmful?
Seems obvious to us now, maybe, but clearly debated then.
And he asks about strong international ties, limiting the absolute power of rulers. Are these bad things?
And tackling corruption, improving the military's conditions. How could those be detrimental?
It's a logical dismantling of the resistance, really, just laying out the obvious benefits.
Okay, so shifting focus slightly. The text then gets into leadership and consultation, right? Working together.
Yes. It stresses the importance of having assemblies of consultation, but it's very specific about who should be in them.
It's not just about being elected, is it? There are qualities needed.
Definitely not. He emphasizes qualities like being righteous, God-fearing, high-minded, incorruptible, also knowledgeable in law, governance, arts, and importantly, content with their official pay.
So, competence and integrity, a high bar.
A very high bar. It paints a picture of selfless, capable leadership being absolutely vital.
And he warns about what happens when that's missing.
Yes, he points to examples in some other countries where parliaments apparently distressed and confused the people precisely because their members lacked these essential qualities, a clear warning about the need for ethical governance.
Which then connects to what he sees as the root cause of problems like oppression and injustice.
Right. He identifies the primary cause as two things: the people lacking religious faith and the fact that they are uneducated.
Faith and education as the foundations for a just society.
That's the argument. He explains that faith and education empower people. They help them recognize injustice, understand when things deviate from divine law or just basic fairness.
And without that?
Well, he contrasts it with the situation then where poor schooling meant people couldn't even really articulate their own needs effectively. It's a deep link between individual capacity and societal health.
He also seems to rank people based on their service to others, doesn't he?
Yes, he differentiates individuals based on their detachment from personal gain and their focus on serving the community. He praises just kings, honorable ministers, the truly learned, wise leaders.
And contrasts them with
those who prioritize their own selfish indulgence over the welfare of the people they're supposed to lead or serve.
And there's an interesting structural idea mentioned, too, about keeping leaders accountable.
Yeah, the idea that members of these consultative assemblies shouldn't be prominent. Their position should depend on the will of the people, encouraging them to act justly.
What about wealth? What's the be there?
It's nuanced. Wealth itself isn't condemned. It's seen as praiseworthy if it's earned through effort and used for philanthropic purposes, especially if it helps uplift the masses. But it strongly condemns situations where you have inordinate riches right alongside widespread poverty. It calls for more balance, more shared prosperity.
Okay. Now, this is where he tackles the arguments against reform head-on, especially the ones based on religion or foreignness.
Yes, and it's fascinating how he uses Islamic tradition itself to counter those arguments. To say learning from foreigners is wrong, he quotes the hadith, "Seek after knowledge, even unto China."
Using the tradition to support openness?
Exactly. And he points out that Europeans, for instance, are considered peoples of the book in Islam, making learning from them even more acceptable.
And the historical example about the Prophet Muhammad.
Right, adopting the Persian tactic of digging a trench for defense during the Battle of the Confederates. A clear demonstration from the highest authority that learning practical things from other cultures is perfectly fine.
He really builds a strong case.
He does. He even mentions early Islamic law, sometimes incorporating pre-Islamic practices, not as a flaw, but as divine wisdom adapting to context. And the analogy, if we learn from animals, surely we can learn useful sciences from other humans.
It makes the resistance seem almost illogical.
That's the intent, I think, to make it clear that importing useful principles, sciences, techniques for the general good is entirely permissible. He uses examples like modern weapons versus old ones, steam engines versus pack animal.
To show how absurd it would be to reject advancements just because they originated elsewhere.
And he points out that even the most advanced nations borrow from each other constantly. So why should Persia isolate itself? It's a strong push for embracing global knowledge.
This seems to lead into the role of the truly learned, the spiritually aware individuals.
Yes, they're described as lamps of guidance. People who understand the times, who grasp current needs, and actively encourage the advancement of learning and civilization.
And that quote about knowing versus not knowing.
Are they equal, those who know and those who do not know? Or is the darkness equal with the light? A rhetorical question, emphasizing the value of knowledge and understanding.
What makes someone truly learned, according to the text?
A whole package. Inward and outward perfections, good character, an enlightened nature, pure intent, intellectual power, discernment, and fear of God or deep reverence. It's contrasted with an unlit candle, useless without embodying these qualities.
There's that tradition mentioned, too, about what a learned person must do.
Right, they must guard himself, defend his faith, oppose his passions, and obey the commandments of his Lord. It's not just about book smarts. It's a holistic path of moral and intellectual development.
And guarding oneself means more than just avoiding sin.
Much more. It primarily means acquiring perfections, both spiritual and material. This includes knowledge of divine and secular sciences, laws, history, even the statecraft of other nations.
Like the example of needing to know the gospel to debate a Christian.
Exactly. Practical knowledge is part of it. The learned also have a role in legislation, supporting the government's executive power.
But finding someone with all that knowledge is rare.
Which is why he suggests the need for a body of scholars, experts in various fields, to deliberate together on current and future needs. Collective wisdom.
He also criticizes inconsistent legal judgments.
Yes, based on individual interpretations of religious law, leading to confusion and delays, he advocates for a single, direct, and definite procedure for settling disputes, fairness, and efficiency.
So, moving beyond knowledge, what are the other attributes of perfection?
Justice and impartiality come next. Selfless service, seeing the community's welfare as your own, that's crucial.
And the third requirement?
Educating the masses. Promoting learning in all useful branches, sciences, commerce, industry, arts. We directly refutes the idea that religious people should be idle or detached from practical progress.
So engagement, not withdrawal.
Definitely. Then there's a list of other vital qualities. Fear of God, love for his servants, meaning all people, mildness, sincerity, resolution, trustworthiness, generosity, respecting others' rights. It's a comprehensive ethical code.
What about defending one's faith? Does that mean fighting?
No, not in the way some might think. He explains it as protecting the whole population and striving to raise up the word of God, promote the faith through positive means, through excellence of character.
Like the Luther example.
Exactly. He uses Luther's Reformation success as an example of how the demonstrable correctness of views and proper methods of sharing them can work, contrasting it with perceived inaction among some Muslim clerics at the time.
And he directly addresses the idea of spreading faith by the sword.
Yes, strongly arguing against it. He says it would only cause revulsion in the modern age and is against the divine law of Muhammad concerning the people of the book. He clarifies that traditions about the sword related specifically to the idolaters of pre-Islamic Arabia.
And the example of early Christianity.
He recounts how Christianity spread despite intense persecution, not by force, but through the spiritual qualities and positive deeds of its followers. Their character was their power.
So the core message is,
That faith, true faith, must be propagated through human perfections, through qualities that are excellent and pleasing, and spiritual behavior, deeds, not coercion.
okay, this flows into the next section on kindness and true civilization, that story about the king, Nu'man.
Yes, King Numan and Anzala is a really powerful illustration. Anzala offers to die in place of another man sentenced by the king, asking only for a delay to settle his affairs. He finds a guarantor.
Who happens to be Nu'man's own son-in-law who barely knows him.
Right. And when Anzal actually returns to face execution, keeping his word, Numan is so struck by this trustworthiness, which Anzala attributes to his Christian faith, that the king investigates, converts, and ends his tyrannical ways.
Wow. So one person's integrity, rooted in faith, changed the course of a kingdom.
That's the power the story conveys, and leads into quoting the Quran. Speak ye to him with gentle speech. Kindness matters.
It stresses being courteous to everyone, right? Even
Yeah.
those you disagree with.
Yes, because harshness and shunning just push people away. Effective guidance requires kindness,
So people with true faith become emblems of God's mercy.
characterized by justice, compassion, trustworthiness, love. That's the ideal. But he then critiques the reality he saw in 1875.
The tendency towards fault-finding, fanaticism, selfishness.
Exactly. He uses this striking metaphor of ill-omened owls, mimicking the songs of white falcons, to describe people using fancy words to hide selfish motives.
A warning against hypocrisy.
And a reminder that true spiritual learning leads to striving for progress through all good means. He also dismisses outward appearance, like a cleric's turban versus a layman's hat, as irrelevant to inner worth.
What about opposing one's passions? That seems key.
He calls it the very foundation of every laudable human quality. It's about maintaining equilibrium, controlling desires that can become destructive. He even points to Europe at the time, despite its progress, as being caught in a terrifying sea of passion and desire, hindering true cultural advancement.
So true happiness isn't just material progress.
No. True happiness is defined as drawing closer to God and securing peace and well-being for all humanity, achieved through developing excellent human qualities. It's about cultivated morality, not just superficial culture.
And he uses examples from Europe to make this point.
Yes, mentioning the Franco-Prussian War, the Paris Commune, conflicts involving religious leaders, civil strife in Spain. Basically say, look, you can have material advancement but still lack true moral civilization if there's constant conflict and injustice.
So what does true civilization require, according to the text?
A radical vision, really. Distinguished sovereigns uniting to establish universal peace.
Universal peace.
Through a binding treaty, a kind of world covenant, fixing borders, limiting weapons, and crucially, agreeing to collective action against any government that violates the peace.
Like an early concept of collective security.
Pretty much. And the benefits. Reduced military spending, allowing focus on human development, universal honor, and tranquility. Very appealing vision.
But likely met with skepticism then, as now, perhaps.
He acknowledges that skepticism but counters it strongly, asserting nothing whatsoever can be regarded as unattainable with endeavor, ceaseless endeavor. He points to past achievements once thought impossible.
And the alternative is grim.
Yes, he warns that continuing to develop the apparatus of conflict will inevitably lead to an intolerable war, an urgent plea for peace.
He also redefines human glory.
Not as conquest, which he calls fleeting and destructive, citing Hulagu Khan, Tamerlane, Alexander, Napoleon,
Right.
but as justice, kindness, building up nations, ensuring people's peace and happiness.
Contrasting conquerors with someone like Anushirvan the Just.
Exactly. Anushirvan's greatness came from admirable qualities and establishing justice, leaving a lasting positive legacy, unlike the conquerors.
And that powerful line about justice.
No power on earth can prevail against the armies of justice. Wisdom and justice are presented as the twin pillars of effective governance.
The text also reminds us life is short.
Yes, emphasizing the importance of leaving a good name through service that pleases God. It does acknowledge war can sometimes be justified resisting aggression, unifying people, but insists the priority now, in 1875 and perhaps still, is establishing universal peace.
Okay, and the last part of that tradition about the learned, obedient to the commandments of his Lord. This brings religion back to the center.
Right. Man's highest distinction, it says, is obedience to God. Religion is called the light of the world, the source of progress and happiness.
But what about criticisms of religion based on bad behavior by religious people?
He tackles that directly. Don't judge the divine principles by the actions of hypocrites who only claim to follow them. His analogy is powerful. It's like blaming a lamp for the darkness when it's held by someone blind or ignorant.
And he critiques Voltaire.
Yes, arguing Voltaire attacked religion without grasping the true, deeper significance of the sacred scriptures. He quotes the Quran here. And we send down of the Quran that which is a healing and a mercy to the faithful, but it shall only add to the ruin of the wicked, implying the fault is in the understanding, not the source.
So religion, when truly understood and practiced, is seen as essential
For achieving the advancement and the glory of man, specifically through love and fellowship and unity among all the members of the human race. True religion is presented as the perfect means for creating that unity.
Quoting the Quran again about uniting hearts.
Hadst thou spent all the riches of the earth, thou couldst not have united their hearts, but God hath united them. Attributing this unifying power ultimately to divine influence through the prophets.
Prophets as unifiers, bringing disparate peoples together.
Yes, and therefore true religion is the very basis and root principle of culture and civilization.
He uses history again to back this up.
Absolutely. The example of the Israelites in Egypt, oppressed, then rising to glory under Moses through the unifying power of divine guidance. He even mentions Israelite wisdom influencing Greek philosophers.
But then their decline,
Attributed to forgetting the principles of their faith, leading to internal strife, corrupt religious leaders, and eventual conquest and destruction, referencing Quranic verses about their transgressions.
contrasted with the impact of Jesus Christ.
Yes, emphasizing the moral core of his teachings, turn the other cheek, love your enemies, and the transformative effect his followers had despite facing intense persecution. It wasn't force, but moral power.
Posing the question, is any principle mightier than religion for creating love, unity, and educating humanity and righteousness?
Exactly. He highlights the exemplary conduct of early Christians, even praised by non-Christians like Galen, their charity, establishing hospital.
But then Christianity also declined.
When its affairs fell into the hands of ignorant priests, leading to the barbaric and dark Middle Ages in Europe, according to this text.
Which is then contrasted with the rise of Islam.
Portraying Islam as transforming the savage peoples of the Hijaz into a highly civilized society through Muhammad's teachings and divine law, excelling in sciences, arts, governance, and ultimately influeing Europe.
How did that influence happen?
Through interactions like the Crusades, he argues Europeans learned about government, social development, learning, refinements of living from the Muslim world during that period.
Bringing it back to Persia's decline again.
Urging the people to seek education, questioning why they lag behind when others benefit from their ancestors' contributions. He even cites a Western historian, Draper, on the Islamic origins of many aspects of European civilization.
Reinforcing the idea that religions, true religions, are the source of perfections.
Both spiritual and material. He claims all the laws of politics are essentially contained in a few key Quranic principles about justice, forbidding wrong, promoting good.
Even the minutest details of civilized life derive from the prophets.
That's the claim. But it comes with a warning. Imperfect leadership, whether in priesthood or government, is dangerous.
What about the idea that humans are inherently good enough, that we don't need religion for progress?
He challenges that, argues even our sense of honor ultimately derives from prophetic teachings. Without education, especially spiritual education, undesirable qualities tend to dominate.
So true religion produces the qualities needed for civilization.
Sincerity, high purpose, purity, kindness, keeping covenants, concern for others, liberality, justice, humanity, valor, service. These are the bright candles of civilization, and religion, properly understood, fosters them.
He gives a concrete example of injustice in Persia.
Yes, the unjust execution of some innocent bailiffs under a previous regime, highlighting the desperate need for just legal processes, and the dramatic population decline due to bad governance and unchecked local power.
Asking leaders if this is justice, if this aligns with divine law.
It's a direct challenge. He counters the argument we're judged by deeds, not education, by holding leaders accountable for the nation's deeds, its decline, their failure to promote its glory and protect progress. Quoting the Quran about fate being fastened to one's neck.
And the noblest deed is?
Service to the common good, lifting the helpless, educating the ignorant, relieving poverty, all with pure motives. The best of men are those who serve the people. The worst of men are those who harm the people.
criticizing the current situation where selfishness undermines progress.
Yes, with examples like someone prioritizing their own watermill over the village's needs or focusing on trivial rituals while ignoring huge societal problems.
Urging Persians to wake up, basically.
Yes, abandon blind imitation, embrace the means of life, happiness, greatness, glory, using metaphors of springtime renewal. He mentions plans for a second volume, hoping this work sparks real change.
Which brings us to the final major theme, the absolute necessity of education.
He hammers this home at the end. The primary, the most urgent requirement is the promotion of education. It's presented as essential for prosperity, success. Ignorance is the principal cause of decline.
So more education, more helpful books and articles.
To clarify current needs, promote advancement, awaken leaders, he used this beautiful metaphor. High thoughts are the dynamic power in the arteries of life, the soul of the world.
Thoughts like an ocean scattering pearls of knowledge.
Quoting the poet Rumi, "Thou, brother, art thy thought alone. The rest is only thew and bone." Emphasizing the power of ideas and the need to shape public opinion with clear, comprehensive arguments.
And the example of China versus Japan.
Illustrates the point starkly. China's vast population but relative weakness in 1875 compared to smaller, more educated Japan, showing education's impact on national strength.
He revisits the argument against borrowing ideas one last time.
Yes, acknowledges internal innovation is great, but says completely ignoring the tested advancements of others is just inefficient, slows things down hugely, like refusing to use the steam engine because you didn't invent it.
Using another poetic line.
Attar has passed through the 7 cities of love, and we are still at the first bend in the road. Meaning, why start from scratch when others have already made progress you can learn from?
The present's advantage is being able to adopt the best of the past and make new discoveries.
Exactly. Is it more practical to get necessities from contemporaries or reinvent everything yourself, generation after generation? It's posed as an obvious choice.
Challenging opponents to specify the harm of importing useful foreign principles.
Suggesting many objections stem from a lack of wisdom and understanding or are just masking selfish interests.
And the final plea.
To the people of Persia, cleanse your hearts, have pure intentions, strive together for the nation's sacred honor and abiding greatness. A call for collective moral and intellectual renewal.
So wrapping this all up, this deep dive into the secret of divine civilization, what are the core takeaways for you? Well, first, that incredible emphasis on the human mind, its power as the engine of progress.
Right. And second, the need to really learn from history's successes and failures. Third, you absolutely need just leadership and widespread education. And crucially, that education needs to be grounded in moral and spiritual principles, not just technical skills.
And fourth,
the necessity of embracing advancements that actually help society, regardless of where they came from. Don't let pride or fear block progress.
So for you, listening, wanting to grasp this efficiently, we hope this gave you a solid handle on the main ideas from this, well, really quite profound 19th century text. It definitely gives you food for thought about societal development over the long haul.
And it leaves you with a big question to ponder, doesn't it? In our interconnected world today, how do we find that right balance? How do we respect valuable traditions while still embracing the new ideas, the innovations we absolutely need to build a more just and more flourishing global society?
It's pretty amazing how resonant these ideas from 1875 still feel. Definitely encourages you to think about our current challenges and opportunities through this lens. We really hope you'll explore the source itself further.
Absolutely. There's a lot more depth there.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.